Welcome, patriots of the American Republic. Welcome back to our channel. Today we got a special guest, Adam Francisco. Adam Francisco has been a super ultra MAGA supporter, goes all around the country waving his big giant Make America Great Again flag and ticking off the liberals and so on and so forth. So Adam, say hello to the audience.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Hi guys, I've been doing this the Trump thing for about 2 years now. And, you know, my YouTube channel is finally taken off, and I think people are starting to get more appreciative of those efforts after what Joe Biden's done to this country.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's definitely pretty cool just watching you do the things that you do, your interactions, how, you know, you get surprises. There's some people that actually surprise you. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm a Trump supporter. You wouldn't have figured that they were. And those are pretty cool live reactions, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, you know, when we go out and we interview people on the street, when I go out and do that, you're always looking for like that magical moment, right? When someone is funny, outspoken, informed, all those things. And when you find the perfect person, sometimes those videos can just go viral and take off, and it just amplifies our message even further. I interviewed this one girl a couple months ago from Flint, Michigan, and she was a white girl that had a little bit of like an urban accent. And she ended up being this huge Trump supporter. It caught everybody off guard. And that video ended up almost 3 million views on YouTube.
Wow.
So it's those kind of like those moments that can really just amplify the MAGA message.
That's pretty awesome. So let me ask you, what got you started, you know, doing your YouTube channel and going out there and speaking your mind, especially in the volatile society that we have nowadays?
Well, I think it was, 2019, I was living in Thailand. And I had all the time in the world when you live in Thailand. Is basically wake up, get a massage, go to the gym, go to the beach, get a massage, meet up with a new girl, go to sleep, wake up, rinse and repeat. So I had all this time in the world. And basically, I noticed that all of my social networks, especially Facebook and Instagram, were very anti-Trump. Now, at the time, most of my friends were in New York and LA. So I started to just get curious, like, all right, if everybody seems to hate Trump, why is there this whole like MAGA movement? What is this whole thing? Because it seems like America either loves Trump or hates Trump. And at the time, I was taught to hate Trump. So I finally started to watch some of his speeches, read about his policies, saw the effects on the economy, saw the effects on the border. And I was kind of like, yo, this guy's actually not that bad. So then I started talking to my friends in New York about it. A lot of them basically shunned me right off the bat when I said, hey, guys, I don't think Trump's that bad. And then 2020 came along with the BLM riots, and I just had enough of it. So I said, you know what? I am going to start to speak my mind on Facebook. And at the time, COVID came into the country, 2020. I couldn't get a job because my industry stopped hiring. So after 4 months of trying to get a job and not being able to do that, I said, you know what? I can't get fired for my beliefs, so I might as well start a YouTube channel and kind of go all in.
That's crazy.
And I also, it pissed me off that the Democrats acted like they owned the minority vote, especially the Latinos. It pissed me off because every time I told people I was like supporting Trump, I got like the craziest reactions. But you're Mexican, but Trump hates Mexicans, but Trump called you a rapist. And I was like, yo, Trump never called me a rapist. He just said that there are some people crossing the border that are criminals, which is a fact. Like no one can deny that. So I just started doing YouTube in 2020, and here we are 2 years later. I'm still continuing the fight to get Trump back as president in 2024.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's a great story, man. I wouldn't have thought that. So
yeah, man.
Much like, you know, Ray, shout out to Ray. You got red pilled, you know, not too long ago, essentially, right?
I'd say I got red pilled. I became Trump curious in 2019, and then BLM pushed me into Trump sexual. So I call myself a Trump sexual now. And I'd say after this election, I became full-blown ultra nuclear MAGA. So that's where we are today. And, you know, I think that I do a pretty decent job representing the MAGA movement because, you know, there's levels to this stuff. There's all different types of MAGA supporters, you know, and the media would have you believe that the average MAGA supporter is going to be some redneck, racist, white supremacist. That's what they want to push out, who we are. And that's not true at all. We are a super diverse movement. We are patriots that want to see America thrive. We want to see America succeed. We're not racist. We're not xenophobic. We just think America should be put first before we open up the border and help the rest of the world. And we're not even there yet. We have so many homeless people. We have so many veterans. We have so many disabled people in this country that aren't being taken care of yet. So until all the Americans are kind of like taken care of, then we can become the world's dumping grounds for anyone's issues. Hey, everyone come on in. But until that moment, we got to take care of ourselves first.
That's right. I totally agree with you on that. And to be quite honest with you, that's been my view since I was a teenager. I never really quite understood why we were outsourcing jobs to other countries. And I just knew common sense off the bat that more jobs leave this country means more my fellow brothers and sisters, my fellow American brothers and sisters are without a job, right? Or they have to go someplace else. And that came to realization in my early 20s. I was working for a big bank and our entire IT department shut down. And I remember seeing people crying because they had been with that company for, gosh, it would seem like a decade more. And the entire department was shipped overseas over to India. Now, nothing wrong against India or anything like that, but I saw the culmination of what I was against as a teenager in my early 20s on this outsourcing. So I was always against it. I was always against putting America even second, forget about last, right? It should always be America first because I look at my country as my house. I may love my neighbors, and I sure do, but my house has to come first. You know what I mean?
Exactly, man. I'm totally with you. Nowadays, I think Philippines has become a big market for outsourcing because the Philippines, in there, they speak English. That's like, I think, one of the primary languages there. So it's interesting. It used to be India. Now it's kind of becoming the Philippines. Whenever I call like Chase Bank, I feel like it's always a Filipino person at the other end. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I have no issue with that. But America first and then help the rest of the world. I don't understand why that's a problem because when I lived in Thailand, when I lived in Vietnam, it wasn't easy for me to get into those countries. I had to prove to Thailand that I had X amount of money in my bank account. I had to prove to them that I was a decent citizen. They did background checks. I had to apply at the embassy months in advance before I left for the country. And for Vietnam, you actually have to get an invite letter from a citizen within the country. So why is it that all these countries can do these things and it's not racist? But when we do it, the left calls us racist. It's bizarre. It's like crazy. It's so crazy to me. Like Thailand, for example. Yeah, like Thailand, they have apartments that you can buy as foreigners, but the building has to be 51% owned by Thai people. So every building in Thailand has to be majority Thailand by 1%. And that's because if anything goes to shit, right, they can say that it's still owned by Thailand first.
Yeah.
That's not racist. That's smart, in my opinion.
I agree.
And here we're selling all of our land now, apparently, to China right now. Everyone's coming and buying up everything in our country. And it's like, shouldn't that send like alarm bells to people that like, why is this happening? Why are we allowing this to happen at such a huge scale? Well,
common sense is very rare nowadays. Yeah. Common sense is even rarer when you look at a specific political party, right? So they're just doing things that lack common sense. But I think to your point with that example, I think as a whole, we're lacking common sense if we're selling land and property to foreign countries, especially foreign countries that say they want to take us over and want to surpass us, right?
And it's working. I mean, I honestly, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to lie. Like I'm not all the way to the right. Like I'm not Alex Jones level conspiracy theory. I find a lot of his stuff very intriguing, though. I'm not going to lie. Like some of the stuff he says makes sense. And he has been correct more than people want to give him credit for. So I do have a lot of respect for him. But yeah, there's definitely infiltration happening at this country across all different levels. We're talking government, corporations, education system, media, Hollywood. Every single level, I feel like there's been some kind of infiltration that's pushing an agenda that makes America weaker. That's what I feel like is happening. And even like TikTok, for example, the stuff that they push out on the homepage to the teens, they would never allow that content in China. Because in China, they're on a masculinity campaign where they're only promoting masculine traditional values. They don't allow the K-pop, Korean pop stars with the makeup onto their app there because they don't want the youth to see that. They want their men to be strong, masculine, traditional gender roles. And here in America, we're tearing down masculinity. We're calling it toxic. We're trying to sell makeup to men. And then the transgender movement, they're really pushing it to the youth, which I think it's a little strange.
It's abusive, in my opinion. I'm very traditional. I'm very conservative. I'm very biblical, right? It's men are men and women are women, right? And that's it. Everything else is, in my opinion, a delusion. I'm sorry.
Now, do you have kids?
I do. I have five. I have four boys, and I just had a baby girl. She's about to turn 6 months.
Congratulations. You're Latino, right?
Yes, I am.
That's why we have 5 kids. Our sperm doesn't miss, right?
Well, hey, listen. From what I understand, the population is declining here in the United States, right? It's only maintaining because of immigration. So I got to make sure I do my part to keep the American movement going.
Oh yeah. They say that in the next 30 to 40 years we're going to flip to a conservative society because liberals are not really having as many kids right now because they abort them. And so I think that you're doing a service to the future of the country, making it more conservative. Hopefully, your kids don't get indoctrinated by the school. Are you concerned about that at all, about what they're learning in school?
So my oldest son, he's already an adult, and I've been talking, things about politics. I've been raising them to love this country. One of the things, and I've mentioned this on our previous episode, is especially for the Hispanic community, we're really so rooted in the origin of either where we came from or where our parents came from that we seldom do we really celebrate the American heritage. It's almost like it's not cool to be American, right? It's cooler to be from some other country and rep some other flag. I've always been a solid American, especially since I was a teenager. I went to Peru when I was 15 for my grandparents' wedding anniversary. It's the first time I went with knowledge and, some type of recognition. I was old enough to comprehend things. And I saw the poverty level. The minute I got out of the airport, I saw like 5-year-old, 7-year-old kids selling candy out on the street. You don't see that here in this country, right? You drive along any major highway and you just see trash and trash and trash and trash and trash and trash. And it's like, wow. And so it made me proud to be born an American. And so from that point forward, I made sure that I represented my country to the fullest that I could. And ever since I've had kids, I've made sure that I've passed that down to them. We are proud Americans. We're not from Cuba. We're not from Peru. We're not from Colombia. We are from America.
Right. Hell yeah, man. And I see you got the American shirt on. Looking good, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I hear that like in Texas, a lot of people, especially on the border towns, they have Mexican flags and not American flags in their front yard. And it's kind of like I'm Mexican, but I was adopted at birth, so I don't really have that Mexican identity or culture. But regardless, I feel like if you're here in this country and, this country's given you a new life and it's given you a great, experience, it's okay to have the Mexican flag, but you should also have the American flag. Fly both. I'm nothing against you flying your Mexican flag. Do it, but make sure you also have the American flag. Because like when I'm traveling in Mexico, if I'm walking around full blown MAGA, it would look weird there. If I was all with American flags and a USA hat on, it would look weird to the people there. They'd be like, "This is Mexico," And it's funny. When I was in Mexico, I actually bought a Mexico shirt to kind of like blend in a little bit more. But it's like that's the whole thing. Is like, you should respect the country that you're in. Same when I'm in Thailand. If I'm in Thailand, I'll wear some shirts that are clearly from Thailand. I'll help support their culture, and I think that just shows a sign of respect to the country you're in.
Absolutely. Like I equate it to like, God forbid, if I had to leave out of this country, let's say if I had to move to Japan, for example, I would absolutely, and become a Japanese citizen, I would absolutely rep the Japanese flag, and I'd also keep my flag because I love my country and I understand that. But I have to admire and show my support for the country that's accepting me in, since I had to leave my original country. And we really don't have that. And it's a little bit hypocritical from the Hispanic community, because I'll tell you what, and we get into these identity politics, right? You're African American, you're Asian American, you're Hispanic American, all this stuff. Let me ask you this. If you've ever gone to any Hispanic country, you ever see like a Colombian Spaniard? You ever see a Cuban Spaniard? You ever see a Peruvian Spaniard? No, they're from wherever they were born at, and they don't ever acknowledge the Spaniard side of that component, right? I don't see Spanish flags hanging up with the Puerto Rican flag, right? As an example. So why?
It's true. I mean, look. Yeah, it's true. My DNA is, I did an ancestry test. I know that that's controversial because I think all the DNA companies are owned by China. I'm pretty sure that's why it takes 16 weeks to get your results, because they're probably shipping it to China, doing it in the labs there, and then sending it back to the US. So that's kind of scary. But I did it. And yeah, I'm actually more Spanish than I thought I would be. I think I'm like 25% Spanish around there, if I recall correctly. But I don't hold the Spanish flag. I don't identify as being from Spain. I was born in Mexico, raised in the USA. So exactly what you're saying is right.
Yep. So listen, one of the reasons that I brought you on is I really wanted to. Number one, I saw your video post of the debates between Marco Rubio and Val Demings, and I was able to watch the whole thing through that. So I appreciate you posting that. But I do want to highlight and focus in on the importance of the midterms coming up. A lot of people think there's a huge red wave coming. I remember hearing that in the last midterms, and it turned out to be a semi-wave, from what I recall. What are your thoughts coming up with this midterm?
All right, so I think that if this was 6 months ago, the red tsunami was basically almost a guarantee. Americans were sick of the gas prices, the inflation, the war had just started around that point, I think, if I recall correctly. And then the Roe versus Wade got overturned, right, from a federal level. That gave the Democrats a lot of momentum. My conspiracy theory is I secretly think they wanted Roe versus Wade to get overturned so that they could use it as a rallying cry to energize the left, to get them all excited again about the midterms. Well, the problem is that happened a little bit too early for them, because now, fast forward to the midterms, inflation is still rising, gas prices are going back up, the war in Ukraine is still happening. The housing prices are still going back up. The mortgage rate is about to hit 7%, which is extremely high. And so you have all these things happening once again. And I think that the Democrats lost their momentum. And this is boding really well for the Republicans. I am feeling pretty confident right now. I've been keeping an eye on a lot of the polling data across the country. And apparently this is looking like it's going to be some sort of red wave. The only problem is we can't be complacent about that. We have to keep pushing and fighting and reminding people to make sure they get their ass off and vote. The average American person is really either uninformed or indifferent. And I know that because when I go out on the streets here, most people are either uninformed or indifferent. And that's a problem. So I feel like people like me and you, we have the capability of pushing the fence sitters and the uninformed to one direction or the other. We have, I think, that power because they don't know what the hell's going on anyway. So I'm hitting the streets as much as I can this weekend with my Trump flag. I just printed up this gigantic poster that I'm going to be bringing out, and it shows the inflation rate under Trump versus Biden. It shows the mortgage rate, Trump versus Biden. It basically just compares the two. And I think that can be really powerful when we say, here's why you into the midterms. So I'll be doing that this weekend. And we're going to keep fighting all the way into the end until the midterms happen November 8th. That's
awesome. So let me ask you this. What are the key seats that you're focused in on? Let's start with the Senate races. Is there anything specific or any particular battle that you're really, really keeping your eye on?
For me, it's going to be Florida. Anything that happens in Florida. That's why I was really interested about the Marco Rubio Val Demings debate, because I just spent a lot of time living in Orlando, and I know Val Demings. I saw Demings signs everywhere in Orlando, and I also saw a lot of protests against Val Demings in Orlando, and I attended some of those. So I'm really interested in that one, Marco Rubio, Val Demings. And then also, of course, I'm interested in a lot what happens here in New York. Now, I don't plan on being in New York much longer, maybe 1 or 2 months, and then I'm back down in Florida. But ultimately, this is my home state. This is where I'm from, right? And I hate seeing the crime. I talk to people on the street. New Yorkers' number one issue is not inflation, it's not gas prices, because most people don't have cars here. And most New Yorkers get paid really well, so they can afford to weather the financial storm. The major issue for the average New Yorker is crime. That's the bottom line, especially with the women. I've met so many women on the street that are like, yes, I am scared to take the subway. Yes, I am now stuck out at night. If you've seen New York in the past couple of months, there was a woman, a 9/11 responder. She got stabbed 20 times by a psychotic piece of shit. There are people that have been pushed in the tracks. 2 Asian women got pushed. Well, I think it might have been one. Got pushed to the subway tracks. The other one was stalked, followed up to her apartment, and then stabbed to death. And these are innocent people. These are not crimes of passion. These are not revenge crimes. This is just straight up wrong place, wrong time, because there are so many mentally ill people or even just evil people that are just walking the streets of New York now. They're not being arrested. They're not being, held in jail. They commit a crime. They're back out on the street. because of the no cash bail that we have here in New York. And it's an absolute disgrace. So I'm also really interested in all the things that are happening in New York. I just went to an event yesterday with AOC. And I don't know if did you hear about that?
I did, and I just wanted to touch on that because I saw the video. I didn't see it. I think you posted one, but I actually saw it through I think it was through Fox News. And towards the end of the video that they had, she claims that she, or I don't know if it was in her district or in New York in general, but that they lowered crime by 50%, if I heard correctly. Did you catch that?
No, I did not, and I don't think that's true. I don't know. Maybe a specific type of crime went down, because I believe homicides in New York actually did drop, but all other crimes have gone up. So assaults, burglary, rape, all those crimes went up, but I believe homicides went down. So that could be the statistic that she was quoting. But homicides are down. It's like that's the only crime, though. There's all these other crimes that exist, and all of those crimes have shot up in the past.
Well, and let me ask you this. Because you just mentioned the bail issue, right? So is it a crime at the moment of arrest, or is it a crime at the moment of incarceration? Because here's what I understand: there's a revolving door of crime that's being let out. So, for example, in California, right, they moved the what they consider like a misdemeanor theft, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from I think it was up to $600. So if it's below $600, they're not going to arrest the person. Does that mean the crime didn't happen? No, the crime still happened. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, like, so for example, there was in New York, if you robbed a store, for example, with a gun at gunpoint or knife point, I believe that was like a felony. They reduced that to like a misdemeanor now, because if you're robbing a commercial establishment, they're basically saying it's not as bad of a crime as it used to be. And I'm like, yo, that's freaking crazy. There was a guy in a McDonald's that pulled out an axe, and he was just, breaking shit. He was out free man literally the next couple days. And he was basically on Instagram bragging about how he was a free man again. And then he was selling merchandise basically about his arrest. And I was like, this is so crazy. Like, this man is obviously some sort of threat. Obviously he had some self-control because he didn't hit anybody with the machete. But it doesn't matter. He was destroying a a McDonald's with a freaking machete, whatever it was, a hatchet. I don't even remember.
It was an axe.
But an axe, yeah. So that's just like, how do we know that person's not going to do something like that again? We don't, but we let them back on the street. And to me, that's just so like, it's insanity. I think he actually got in trouble again a few weeks after that, but that's not a surprise, right? Because criminals tend to commit more crimes.
So here's the funny thing: numbers don't lie, but based on criteria, right, and attributes, you can definitely manipulate numbers. So to that point, right, if you change what constitutes a misdemeanor, a felony, and so on and so forth, you can absolutely manipulate the numbers, and you could say, oh look, it went down from this year to last year, but is it an apples to apples comparison? Because if you change the criteria of what comprises that number, then it's no longer apples to apples, and you've got a really, really false year over year comparison.
Well, that's what the Democrats are really good at, and what I've learned is they're actually very smart and strategic. Is they are the masters of linguistics, where they can change the definition. Like, what is a recession? Well, it used to be 2 consecutive quarters of like negative GDP growth or something, and then they're like, no, that's not the definition. Now it's not that, and it's like, wait, what happened? So that's what the Democrats are good at, of shifting definitions, goalposts, and even with the inflation. Apparently, the way they're tracking inflation has changed. That's why they're able to say it's only 8.3%, but in reality, we all know it's a lot higher. We all feel it. I mean, I went to a store in Florida about, I'd say 6 months ago, to buy a bag of apples, and I brought them up to the register, and the bag of apples was like $27. And I was so confused. I was like, what, how is this possible? And they were like, oh, those are the special apples. And I was like, what the hell? What are special apples? Oh, those are like $7, $8 a pound. And I was like, what? And so obviously I didn't buy it, but it's like, come on, we all know inflation is not 8%. We all know it. Like, just go shopping for a minute.
It's just crazy.
And you'll see it. You'll know it.
Now, and here's what's crazy is the amount of excuses that the White House is coming up with, which I understand. They don't want to take blame. Nobody ever takes blame. It's always a blame game, point the finger. I get that from them. what really ticks me off is the media is complicit, right? The media covers up for him. The media lies. The media does not do what they're supposed to do, which is actual journalism. And then you've got the people that listen to it, and it's like, yeah. No matter what excuse it comes up with, no matter how many times it changes or the goalpost moves, they continue to go, yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, there is one company that I do want to give a shout out to that I think is sorry about that music. I'm going to send you a link. There is one company that I think is doing honest journalism still, and I'm very, very proud to say that I watch them all the time. Is Project Veritas.
Oh yes,
I think that it's one of the few companies that is really dedicated to old school journalism.
Yep.
And so shout out to James O'Keefe. You are absolutely awesome, and I know that I have great respect for what you do.
Awesome.
So thank you, James O'Keefe.
Awesome. Going back, so you were watching Florida. Anything else that draws your attention as far as the Senate race goes?
I mean, for me, it's really Florida and New York. That's what I care most about. Those are the states that I go back and forth to. But then I also do keep an eye on places like Texas. There is that Mexican American congresswoman named Mayra Flores.
Yes.
Who is she did like upset in the primaries or something down in Texas. She flipped a place that was blue. Now looks like it might go red with her. I mean, that to me is really, really, really freaking exciting. I also have fallen in love with Carrie Lake. So Carrie Lake, if you're watching this and you're single, I'm here. I'm available. I really do
Arizona,
love Carrie
right?
Lake. Yeah, she is amazing. She doesn't take shit from the media. And the one thing that I'm really disappointed about is how many Democrats are not debating Republicans. So we have AOC, who doesn't want to debate against Tina Forte. We have Katie Hobbs, that doesn't want to debate against Carrie Lake. And then we also have Kathy Hochul in New York that doesn't want to debate against Lee Zeldin. So it's like, I feel like this is a strategy that Democrats are using to not expose their insanity. I feel like that's what they're doing, is that's your strategy. And I'm just like, how are you supposed to run a state if you're too scared to go against your adversary on a debate stage?
You know what?
This is like,
I didn't even know they could do that. Like, I thought that was just, like, I guess my ignorance. I just thought that. I mean, I thought that was a requirement, and you got to interview for the job.
Correct. And Katie Hobbs in Arizona is using the excuse of she doesn't want a spectacle. Well, I'm sorry, debates are supposed to be spectacles, right? Like, look at Trump versus Hillary. That was such an amazing spectacle. We all loved it, and I know it decided, at least for a handful of voters, which way they went. And then even look at Trump versus Biden. That too was a spectacle. So trying to say that you won't avoid a spectacle is such a lazy excuse, in my opinion.
It really is. It absolutely is.
I sent you a link in the private chat if you want to pull it up. I think this is the perfect example of what you were talking about a few minutes ago, about how people watch the news and then just agree with whatever the news says. This is an example of it. It's like a 30-second clip that I did. It's actually, this video got over 1 million views on my channel already. And it's basically so bringing up all the different crises and the inflation has the liberal in complete denial.
The gas prices. It's not his fault. The war in Russia. It's not his fault. The school shootings. It's not his fault. The crime rate. Who are you blaming? The border crisis. I'm just saying, when you look at the 4 years under Trump versus the 2 years under Biden, it seems a big difference in those 5 crises.
You got to dig deeper.
I want to dig deeper. That's what I
just. Deeper, then you don't know this is.
I'm registered independent, by the way, so I'm in the middle.
Then you got to vote for somebody.
Right. I'm independent registered. No, I'm just independent. I'm just looking at it from the unbiased lens.
That's.
I am full-blown MAGA. I actually am registered as an independent, but I'm still full-blown MAGA. And so I was saying that kind of as a joke for my audience, because they know that I'm not non-biased. I am very biased at this point. I am very on the Trump train. And, I'm not a hardcore conservative. I grew up as a liberal. I grew up as a Democrat. I just think that the Republican agenda makes too much sense, especially the Make America Great Again agenda makes too much sense. It is common sense policies, America First policies. And look, I actually love living in Thailand. I have a happier, easier life in Thailand than I do in America. A big reason is because the cost of living in Thailand is so much cheaper, but also I have access to beautiful women in Thailand because I'm an American man, right? It's easier to date in Thailand than it is in the US. So I have a great time in Thailand, day-to-day living, but I know what makes America special, and it's the Constitution, and it's supposed to be things like free speech and the right to defend ourselves with the right to bear arms. And so because I've traveled the world, even though I might have enjoyed myself in other places, I still recognize what makes America special, the vision for it, the ideology behind it. And that's why I am full-blown MAGA, because I want to protect that. Because if I had a problem with the U.S., guess what I would do? I'd find a country that I'm happier in. I wouldn't try to change this country. I just get up and move. So that's why I don't get it. These leftists want to hate. They want to hate. They want to say, oh, they stand up for Black lives. All right, if that's the case, why don't you go spend some time in Africa, and you could, do whatever you want over there. And it's not about just race. It's about, if this is what you care about, just go experience other countries. Go live in a majority-dominated Black country. Just see what that's like. Just as I've gone to countries all around the world to experience the culture, to immerse myself. And it just makes me love America even more, just like you said with Peru.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's the interesting thing. So I haven't been watching all of the Senate races. At this point, man, I'm voting Republican down the line, obviously, right? Because the Democrats are just too crazy. Yep. But let me ask you on specifically on Rubio and Demings, how do you think they did?
Let me see. That was a fun debate to watch. I think Demings was a little bit more reactive, just a higher level of emotion than Rubio showed. And I don't think it's because she's a woman and he's a man. That's not what I'm talking about. I just think it's typical of the Democratic platform to try to pry with emotions. That's always seems to be the way that they go about things, feelings and emotions. And I just think Marco Rubio did a really good job of presenting facts, of quoting statistics, and he seemed very confident in what he was quoting. I also think that, especially when it came to abortion, he mentioned that he was going to sign bills that had exceptions built into it, right? Because he was talking about how he is compassionate and that he does acknowledge that his constituents want exceptions. Even if he himself doesn't, his constituents want that. So he was respecting that. And she kept saying, like, you don't want any exceptions. He's like, no, I want exceptions. And she kept saying, and it was just like so bizarre to me that these politicians, and this wasn't just that, it happened with Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock as well. They just lie in our faces right after the guy or the person says, like, I'm for exceptions. And then they just come out and say, you're not for, and it's politics at the highest level, and it's really frustrating to watch in real time.
I can totally see that happening if the person's been on the record for being in the reverse. For example, we know that the Democrats are really big on defunding the police, right? They ran with that in 2020 up until this year. I'm now starting to see many of them backtracking on the defunding the police, starting with Joe Biden, where he wants to fund police. Now, I've never really been behind the defund the police. BS. They were all behind this defund the police movement, and if they stayed silent, then they were complicit. Because let me tell you, talk about common sense. Common sense tells you that our police department are there to protect us as a whole, right? You have some bad apples. We're talking about the whole, right? And so to defund them means you're giving criminals more of a chance to commit crimes. Crimes is going to go up naturally. So now we've got statistics since 2020 showing the rise in crime, and now a lot of them, because it's midterm, because it's voting year, right? Oh, now we want to backtrack. No, I've always been in support of the police, of law enforcement, and so on and so forth. And I would call them out. You say that now, but you weren't saying that a couple months ago.
Coral?
There's a staffing shortage for law enforcement across the state, from state police to local departments. Do you think we need more officers on the streets? And if so, what would you do as governor to try to help fill those vacancies? And we begin with Ms. Kotek.
Yes, I do. When people call 911, they need to feel safe and have the right response at the right time. And we do need more officers. And one of the things the state can do is increase the number of classes and trainings that are available so local law enforcement can get new hires through that training in a more efficient manner. That is something the state can do. I've always supported our state police. It's important to have state police around the state to particularly serve our rural communities. It's also important that the crime lab and other resources there are at full capacity, so evidence can be assessed and utilized for making charges. So there's a lot we can do in local law enforcement that, as governor, I will definitely support doing. We also need to have different types of response. I support Portland Street response, mental health crisis, counselors who show up when it's a mental health crisis and not a violent crime. So the right response, have enough people to do that, will make our community safer.
those who need to be turned back, those who are breaking the law, from those who are asylum seekers. Senator, enforce the law, but also obey the law as well.
Which boots does she want on the ground? She was against National Guard deployment. They demonized the Border Patrol. And they talk about processors.
Who are you talking about, Senator?
Well, your party.
Who demonized the...
You have, and your party has,
That's
Congresswoman.
a lie.
Absolutely.
That's right. And the reality is, like, law-abiding citizens, people that follow the law, they don't worry about the police. You know, like, the only thing I've done really wrong in my life is probably speeding a little bit on the highway. Let's be honest. But I don't fear the police, really. I don't fear and I don't hate them because I generally follow the law 99.9% of the time, unless I'm going 15 above on the highway. That's the only time where I'm like a little nervous, like, oh, the police aren't, hiding in the bushes somewhere. But like, even if they do stop me, because I think I got stopped for speeding once. If they do stop, that's not true. It's been a few times, but I got one ticket one time. When they do stop me, I keep my hands on the steering wheel. I roll the window down. I'm very respectful. I'm very polite. And guess what? I don't get dragged out of the car. I don't get held at gunpoint. I don't resist arrest because I can avoid all that early on by respecting the police. And also, I mean, I have a clean record. If they want to run my license plate, they're not going to find anything on me because I have a clean record except for a speeding ticket, which I got removed from through the ticket clinic. Shout out to the ticket clinic. They're really useful. But you know what I'm saying? Like, the law-abiding citizen does not fear the police.
You're right.
Because they protect us. They help us.
Absolutely.
So I love the police, and I'm a minority, and I'm brown. So it's like, yo, they're not always the whole myth that they're racist and targeting people. I think is a myth. I never felt targeted by the police.
You know what? It's such a bad component. I mean, again, do we have scenarios? Do we have instances? Yeah, but on the vast majority, I think Larry
Correct.
Elder actually does a really good video. He did one on PragerU talking about this very same subject matter. And the facts are the facts. The statistics are the statistics. Listen, bottom line, keep your nose clean and make good choices. That's the bottom line. Listen, I grew up in the hood. While my friends were doing drugs and doing stuff like that, I shouldn't say my friends, people that I grew up around. Let me rephrase that. People that I grew up around were doing that bad stuff and they got caught up in that. I didn't. I kept my nose clean. My parents raised me a little bit better. You know what I mean? They told me we had that whole like war on drugs. Just say no. The campaign by the Reagans, right? Just say no. You know, and I grew up with that. And now we're at a point in our society where it's no longer just say no. It's try it, do it. And the government will do it for you. You know what I mean? You got California giving people needles and stuff like that over there.
The clean crack pipes. That's how they think they're being anti-racist, by giving out clean crack pipes to the crackheads. It's absolutely disturbing. And you know, the reality is, like, the police have millions of interactions a day with us, the citizens, millions. And we only see the handful where they have bad police work. And look, I'll call out bad police work. I watch it all the time. There's this channel on Reddit I love called Public Freakouts, and a lot of times they'll show examples of really bad police work. It does exist, and those police need to be retrained. They need to be punished. They need to be held with the law. But the vast majority of police interactions with the community are good, normal interactions, the vast majority. And I think we need to acknowledge that. It's the exception. The bad interactions, from my perspective, tend to be the exception.
Exceptions, those bad examples have to be handled through the proper channels. Okay, you might not like what happened. Great. You take it to the supervisor, you take it to the courts, you file a report, grab you jot down the police officer's badge number, you file a legitimate complaint. You don't fight, you don't berate the police officer, you don't resist, you don't not comply. You know what I mean? Like, there's ways that you can do things if you're not being treated the right way.
That's correct. Take it up legally. Don't try to address it on the street. Because I watch some videos where I see these criminals, they react so poorly with the police, and they end up getting killed, getting shot. And I'm like, yo, this could have been avoided if you just complied in that one moment and dealt with it legally. Just the next day, you wake up, get your lawyer. They have the body cam footage usually, and settle it the legal way. Stay alive so you can fight tomorrow. And a lot of these people, they try to fight in the moment. Like, the one thing I realize about police officers is once they have the intention of arresting you, 99.9% of the time, it's not going to end without them arresting you. Like, once they have it in their mind that we're going to arrest this person, you're done for that day. There's almost no circumstance where the police can go, you know what? Let's all pause. We were wrong. They almost never do that. So it's like, just go along with it. Put your hands behind your back, deal with it tomorrow, and that's it. You'll be alive at least.
Here's the bottom line, though. At the end of the day, like you said, 99% of them are good people doing their job. I have family that's law enforcement. But even if I didn't, let's just say I didn't, my position would not change. I don't know where we went. Like, we must have entered some type of wormhole where all of a sudden the criminal is the good guy and the police and law enforcement are the bad guys. And then the actual victims are also the bad guys because it's racist or discriminatory in some sense. Like, dude, it's like we're in Twilight Zone with this stuff.
Yeah, and I always say on my streams that when I do my videos, I say that the Democrats are criminals first, citizens last, and that's really kind of the approach it seems like they have, especially here in, New York. I think Project Veritas just did a video with some of Eric Adams' team. He is the mayor, and they basically admitted on camera that he knows there's a crime problem and just doesn't really care to do anything about it. Apparently, from the Project Veritas video, so. That's the kind of attitude that a lot of these people have. For some reason, they think crime is a strategy for them to win votes. And as you said, if somebody complains about it, then they're being racist. And it's just like they have all the excuses in the world to keep crime high. And that's what it just seems like they're doing.
Absurd.